All right, it's 7 o'clock. Emily, if you'd like to go ahead and get us started, I think we are now live with everybody.
All right, so I'll start with the call to order for the Arts Committee and the roll call.
All right. Just give me a second here as I find my way. Okay, Member Guan, and then turn on your mics and let us know that you are actually here. So, Member Guan?
Hello.
Here. Member Chen?
Present.
Member Green?
Present.
Member Shaw? Member Carlton is an excused absence today, and there we have it. Hello, everybody.
All right, next we have the land acknowledgement, so I'll read the land acknowledgement. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lishan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to the indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community, and we will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. Right. The next item on our agenda is the approval of last meeting, which was on May 8th. Should we pull that up or?
We don't necessarily need to pull it up if everybody got a chance to read it. If there are any changes or if there was anything that, or if we have any public comment, we can take public comment on the minutes. Okay. There's a copy of the agenda back there. Would you like me to bring? I don't think the minutes are on there with that, but I can bring them up on the screen if you'd like. Just give me one moment here. All right, just a second here. All right, let's see. Sorry, let me do that again. All right, here we go. Here are the minutes, if you want to take a look. All right. Just let me know if I need to go slower or.
Okay.
Yeah.
I move to approve them.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay. And do a roll call vote on the approval of the minutes. Member Guan?
I second that.
That would be either yes, no, or abstain.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Member Chen?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Shaw? Yes. Minutes are approved. Thank you.
Okay, the next item that we have on the agenda is the public comment. So are there any public comments either in person or on the web?
I don't see anybody in the web. Do you have a public comment? Please, to the microphone, please. Thank you. This microphone right here, this is the one for public comment. Yeah.
Okay, my name's Kathy Deal, and been living in Albany for probably the last 40 years. I originally lived over in the village, and then just stayed because it was so nice. But I'm so happy to see the art committee look pretty energetic group, and I'm actually interested in perhaps joining the committee. And I wanted to come and get an idea of what you're addressing. And I also have a project that I'm interested in implementing in Albany, and it has to do with the blessing that we have on Albany Hill of the monarch migration. And it's interesting because I grew up in Michigan, and the monarchs came the opposite time of the year. And when I was a little girl, my mom would always point out the window when they came back. She'd say, "Oh, look at the monarchs, they're back." But now they come back, the different time of the year for me. But I've always wanted to celebrate them. And you may have seen a lot of notices lately that they could be endangered. And last year, the numbers were really low, and people were getting really worried. And apparently they came back somewhat. And I talked to the folks down in Santa Cruz at Natural Bridges. They migrate there on much greater numbers, but still they were excited because they thought that the numbers had increased last year. And another thing that kind of inspired me about this project I'm thinking about is a special that was on PBS about the celebration that the Mexican people have. They come in the millions from North America to Mexico during their migration, and they have this huge celebration. And I thought, gee, wouldn't that be neat if we had a monarch festival? And possibly we could incorporate it into like the Solano Stroll event because the migration is around the same time. But I've talked to different people about their interest, and I talked to a woman that works at, the lampshade company up there on Solano. I think it's Susan's. I'm not sure about the name. But anyway, there's a woman there who belongs to a stilt walking group, and she said, I'd be interested. I belong to a stilt walking group, and our costumes are monarch butterfly wings. And so, and then I happen to have a daughter who has a dance troupe where she they kind of they express different.
Just the 3 minutes for public comment.
The virtues of nature through their dance. So anyway, I'm looking to raise community support for such a project. And I just want to suggest it to you, and you're going to think about it, and I'm willing to meet with you and tell you what else I've done so far on it. And maybe this would be the central group to implement it.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for your comment, Kathy. Should I have any discussion around this, Jeremy, or?
No, because it's not on the agenda, but
Okay.
It is something that could come up tonight as you look at the Public Arts Master Plan. There could be just some discussion in there, or it could be agendized as a future agenda item for an upcoming meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, then I believe then the next appropriate thing is to move on to the next agenda item, which is announcements. So are there any announcements from either staff or committee members or reports or updates on the previous agenda items?
I do have some updates that I could, some announcements that I could share with you, and a couple updates. We have a number of events coming up for the city of Albany here in the coming months. This on Sunday is the Albany Juneteenth event at the corner of on Solano and Masonic. The city is a sponsor of that event, and but there's going to be a number of great musicians, arts and entertainment, fun for the family there. Also, 4th of July, there's a concert in the park on 4th of July. Coffee with the Cops is coming up in July, I believe, and then National Night Out. Those are all some public events that you all should be aware of, and also a good opportunity to interface with the public if you want to thinking about arts and music, performance events, those sort of things that are happening here in Albany. Also, I just wanted to let you know, if you take a look at the Albany, I've been digging around a little bit on the arts section of the website, did a little bit of cleanup, still have a few things that I need to do, but one of the most notable things is I changed the Albany Community Center foyer gallery application from a mail PDF process to an online form. That should make things a lot easier for artists to apply. I haven't responded to the artist, but I got a cold email from an artist who lives here in Albany last Friday, and then it kind of inspired the change to happen rather quickly because I didn't want to have to send another piece of paper to somebody else and potentially lose track of some paper that got here. That way we can keep it all kind of tidy and easy to forward to the committee when applications come in. Other than that, those are the only announcements that I have for the committee. Save for our newest member, Melanie, who has joined us tonight for our first meeting. Maybe we can do a round of announcements or introductions again. We also have another student member whose name is Julian, who is unfortunately out of town. Actually arriving back today, probably won't be here in time for the meeting, and will be sworn in this week and will be joining us at the next meeting in July, which leaves one position still open for the committee. I'm not sure where that is. It's up to council for making those appointments. But if you have your application already in, yeah. So that concludes my announcements for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Would we want to just do introductions after the scheduled time, or?
Oh, we can. I think now probably would be a good time. I
Okay.
think, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we can go first, Melanie, and then you can introduce yourself. So I'm Emily. I'm now the chair of this committee. I'm a graduate student at UC Berkeley in environmental science, and I have lived in Albany for 4 years and really appreciated all the installations in the parks over the years. So that's kind of my motivation for being part of the committee.
I'm Deirdre, and I manage 2 chefs and a business where we work with museums a lot. And I've lived in Albany for a long time, and my kids went through all the schools, so here I am now.
All right, I think that's on. Hello, my name is Harsh. I have lived in Albany a short period of time, which is 2 years compared to 40 years as we earlier. So pretty new to the city, very excited to be here. And I think, just walking around the city, have just continued to get inspired by some of the art that exists today, but also get excited about what else can be done as well. So I've been on the arts committees since last year. I was reappointed this year, and excited to be working on a murals project with Deirdre. And for my work life, I work at a company named Canva, whose mission is to empower the world to design. And so there's some amount of parallel there with the great stuff that's happening in this committee.
And you're the vice chair.
I'm also the vice chair. Yeah.
Melanie, I'm Jeremy. I'm the staff liaison. I do not live in Albany, but I've been working here for about 20 years now. I am an artist, photographer, musician, designer, and I do media production for the city. Also, I'm a Cal alum as well, so go Bears. And I have just recently taken over the Arts Committee. I did the Community Media Access Committee for close to 10 years. When that committee was sunset, then I was assigned to this committee because of my work primarily in the arts and the work that I did with the Albany Film Fest for over 10 years, working as the technical director for that. So there's a lot of kind of intersections between arts, economic development, media production, and that's kind of where I find myself here now. So even though I'm still relatively new to the Arts Committee, my kind of history and trajectory in the arts is kind of what, will guide me through this. So you want to give us a little bit of your background?
Yeah. It's nice to meet you all. I'm Melanie. I'm going into my senior year of high school, and I've been living in Albany since my freshman year of high school, so I'm also kind of new here. But yeah, I've been doing art since I was very little, and I've been doing it personally, and I want to bring it to my community, which is why I'm part of this now. Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome.
Great.
All right. So I'm promoting Isabella Duke, who will be here tonight talking on the Public Arts Master Plan. So just bringing her in now, and she can give you, Isabel should be here now, and she can give us a little bit of background. Let me dim the lights in here. And Isabel, hello there.
Good evening, everyone.
I'm going to dim the lights here real quick so everybody can have a clear view.
I'm Isabella Duke, and I'm the Assistant City Manager for the City of Albany. A little bit of background, since you've all introduced yourself, I'll introduce myself as well. I've been working for the city for 17 years. Started in the recreation department, and at some point in my career in Albany, I was also the staff liaison to the Arts Committee. So I have a lot of experience with this committee, as well as personally. I did study art in college and do dabble into art still now. So art is a very important to me. It's part of my life. And I'm glad that we have this committee and this emphasis on public art in Albany as well. So speaking of public art, so what the item you have before you this evening is the discussion on the committee's public arts projects plan. This is a document that the Arts Committee uses to make a recommendation to Council for the selection of projects funded by the Art in Public Places Fund. So upon review of the site inventory and programs in the Public Art Master Plan, the Art in Public Places Fund balance and the public art projects underway, you, the committee members, create a biannual every 2 years PAPP, which I will use as the abbreviation for the Public Arts Projects Plan from now on, that is forwarded to Council for approval. And the reason why these projects have to be forwarded to Council for approval is that they're funded with a special art fund, which I can explain also a little bit. So the way that the city collects these funds specifically for public art in Albany is that we collect on any development construction projects that are greater in cost of to $300,000. We collect 1.75% of the public art for public art component. So a lot of the developments will consider public art on the property that they're developing, and the public art piece will be included on the property. So an example of that is the public art piece by Bruce Beasley in front of Belmont Village. Or the public art piece, which the name escapes me right now, Jerry, I don't know if you remember, but the public art piece that is in the parking lot of Sprouts. Those were all public art pieces that were funded through this public art ordinance. Do you remember the name of that public art piece?
Which one?
One in the parking lot of Sprouts.
I don't remember the name of that.
I know,
shoot.
me neither. It just escapes me. But that's another one. I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about, but it looks like a flower. Anemones. I think that's what it is.
Anemones, that's correct, yeah.
Yes. But in some instances, when there's not a possible space for a public art piece on the property, or if the developer decides not to include public art on the property, then they do a contribution equal to 1.75% of the project cost, construction cost, to the Art in Public Places Fund. So that's what we use to create public art in Albany, aside from what I just described. So that's the reason also why for all the projects funded with this special art fund, the projects have to be approved by the city council. So going back to the PAPP, so the idea for tonight is to begin a discussion by reviewing the current PAPP and an update, which I outlined in the staff report. And then discuss possible items for the next PAPP. And I did provide also a draft for you to start from. This was just to be helpful to the committee. It's not meant to be a direction. It's just, based on what's been done in the past and some of the conversations I've had with some of the committee members and conversations you've had as a committee, I drafted this draft PAPP for you tonight. Once the PAPP is approved by council, it is also possible to revise it and make amendments. Again, you can add projects later on after approval, with, of course, by going to the council as well for any amendments. But again, it's kind of a living document that helps the committee focus your efforts for during your term. So do you have any questions so far? Okay, so I'll go over the current PAPP. And please, I know there are some committee members who may have additional information. So please feel free to add any information that you think would be helpful for the committee to know. So the first project that is on the current PAPP is the Creative Justice Art Project, and $30,000 was approved as part of this PAPP for this project. So a call for artists was released on November 8, 2021. A panel reviewed the submission received in September 2022 and made a recommendation to the Arts Committee in November 2022. The Arts Committee selected to move forward with Susan Moffitt's project, Path to Belonging. And community outreach for the project is scheduled to begin at the end of July for a period of 60 days. And that is according to the review of public art outlined in the public art master plan. So we're following the process outlined in the master plan for all public art projects. The committee also had selected to include the heron sculpture. So it was more of a rehabilitation, some research on whether or not the heron sculpture could be restored, removed, or placed somewhere else. I don't believe there was any work done on this specific project, but we did do just a little bit of information. We did do a restoration of this piece in 2012. The piece was restored on site by a company that was selected to do this work. We had contacted the artist also first per the law, and he chose not to do the restoration. So then we went ahead and hired a company to do it. But now it sounds like there's a need to evaluate, the sculpture again because it's rusting, and it's normal wear and tear for this sculpture because of where it is, and also it's been there for a long time. And most public art pieces have a lifespan, and those are the discussions that you may or may have not had about what to do with an aging public art piece that may need attention. There was also $10,000 assigned to the sculpture loan program. So a sculpture by Jeff Downing entitled Baird Spiral was installed at Masonic Avenue and Washington Avenue on the Albany Greenway on May 9th, 2022 for a period of 2 years. So this is, there was a call for artists for 2 locations. Actually, it was 3 at the time. But two of the locations moved forward. There's cement pads that were installed, and so one of the artists we moved forward with, his installation happened in May of 2022. There was another artist that had been selected for another location at Masonic and Solano, also on the Albany Greenway. But that artist backed out due to COVID and having moved away. So there is another pad that is vacant now. And I know the committee had discussed potentially moving with a new call for artists for the sculpture loan program in the future. And then there's another category. Let's see. Yes, the community projects mural program set aside fund. That is $20,000. I don't believe any projects were implemented under this category. It sounds like the committee, and maybe Harsh, you have more information on this item. I know there was some discussion about allocating $10,000 for the creation of murals on locations identified by city staff, and there was also a mural that had been assigned some funding a while back, but the artists moved away and we weren't able to finalize that piece. So what's a little special about this set aside funding, and I'll go into it as we move forward into your discussion of the next PAPP, unless you have, I think I'll finish, and then if you have questions, we can move forward. I can answer them there. But so this is the current PAPP and an update of where things are. So now you're going to move forward with your discussion on creating your own PAPP for the years for 2023 and 2025. As I mentioned, I did provide a draft for you to work from. One of the projects that has to stay there is the Creative Justice Art Project, because it is currently underway and it has to roll over into the new PAPP. The funding has not been spent, but we're asking, for the funding to roll over into the new PAPP so that the process and the project can continue. I've included also the sculpture loan program, just in case if you wanted to do a new call for artists for the second pad that is currently vacant. I think there had been discussion at the committee level to increase the artist stipend. So this would be a good time to discuss that as part of your ask for funding to council. I rolled over also the heron sculpture in case this is something the committee would like to pursue. It's the investigation of options for the sculpture. And then the community project set aside fund was basically meant to be for small scale community projects of less than $10,000. So these are projects that are usually, it could be a call for artists for these very small projects. The amount is not to exceed $36,000 because the set aside fund cannot be more than 20% of what is in the Art in Public Places Fund as of January 1st, 2023. So since there's about $180,000 in the fund right now, this is the maximum you could ask council to set aside for these smaller community projects. And again, this is, it could be a call for artists or a call for community projects. Sometimes there's people in neighborhoods who want to organize themselves around a specific mural or a park project, but it has to be, it's really meant to be small in scale, volunteer based, and under $10,000. Including any funding that is provided by other source. So as part of these projects, we also, it's not mandatory, but one of the criteria is that the group or the community that is asking for this funding also has, some sort of matching funding source so that it's kind of a collaborative project for more than one person. And then I omitted, but I also, in my discussion, but I also included the murals and commercial district because we have a subcommittee who has done a lot of work on that. And I think they will have some information to share with you on where they're at and possible consideration for the use of Art in Public Places Fund for this program as well. Let's see, what else can I say? So as I mentioned earlier, there's about $180,000 in the Art in Public Places Fund. As I mentioned also, the funding source for this is development in Albany and a choice by the developer to make a contribution, an in lieu contribution to the city instead of having public art on the property. Those don't come in very often. They're isn't, there may be one more project, one project coming down the pipeline that may contribute, where I'm not quite sure, but I will also plan to invite the community development director to, or somebody in community development to provide, some information to the committee in the future on, the rate of development in Albany and any potential dollar amounts that could contribute to this, to this fund in the future. But at the moment, there's about $180,000, and that does not. I did not take out the $30,000 yet for the Creative Justice Art Project because that has not been given to the artist yet.
So roughly, they're looking at about $150,000 unencumbered?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So it looks like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a lot of discussion for each of these points. Is that correct? So maybe the best way to go through it is to go through each of the points that Isabel just discussed, and then we can ask questions or bring up our thoughts on that.
Sure. Would you like me to bring up either the previous PAPP or the draft on the screen again? Would that be helpful?
Sure, maybe the draft would be
Okay.
good. Are there any general questions aside from the specific projects?
I have one. So Isabel, can we spend, theoretically, could the city spend down the fund with $180 in it?
Yeah, you could choose to spend it all in the next 2 years. But just so you know, the ordinance was put in place. I don't know, now I forget, but it was years ago. So it takes a long time to get funding in the Art and Public Places Fund because there's not a lot of development in Albany. So if you spend it all this year, or in the next 2 years, then it's going to take a while, before you get, $100,000 again. Because usually, the projects, if you count 1.75% construction costs on a $300,000 project, it's not a lot of money. And those projects don't happen very frequently. And, but yes, you could certainly suggest that to council if you wanted to. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I had a question about, there's a few other items in the general master plan, like the banner program and the laureate. So are those not things that last year's committee put on their plan, and right now in the draft would not have any money going towards it? Is that correct?
That's correct, because they're not funded with the Art in Public Places Fund.
Okay, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're not part of the arts and public places, but their funding comes from elsewhere then?
Well, it depends. The poet laureate, there was a call for a poet laureate, and I think the committee received one application, and the reviewing panel decided made a recommendation not to move forward with that application. Mm-hmm. So at the moment that we don't have a poet, so we don't have funding for the poet. But usually it's a very, very small stipend of, I think, about $750 that that we usually cover with general fund, and also receive, the committee also sometimes asks the Albany funding from the Albany Community Foundation. They do provide small grants for projects. So they will ask the Albany Community Foundation also for grant money to cover the poet laureate stipend. And as for banners, at the moment, banners are not. We don't have banners in the budget, but we are looking at our economic development division is looking at potential banners in the future.
Okay, and so I guess since this is a living document, if we wanted to add that, we can always add that in the future.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But banners would not be part of this because they're not permanent art. So the Art in Public Places Fund has to usually fund permanent, three-dimensional or murals, things that art that will last over time. So banners would probably not fit under this, this definition. But if there were any banners created at some point, we would fund them with a different funding source.
Okay. Any other questions? Just clarifications on this report from anybody?
Yeah, I have a question, which is for Isabel. In the context of this being a living document, like I guess, how living is the document? Because I assume if we do want to make revisions to it, it means kind of getting it back into review by council, which can, take some time, or there could be some back and forth. And so, just wanted to get clarification on that.
Yeah, there is a process, to make recommendations to council. So the committee would have to vote by motion to make an amendment to the PAPP. And then that recommendation would go to council at their next meeting, usually, based on, when the Arts Committee would make. So if the current PAPP is adopted by council in July, and let's say you decided in November you wanted to make a revision and made a motion to make that revision, then we could potentially bring that motion and revision to council at the December meeting. So the turnaround is, 30 days, I would say. So then you'd probably potentially have your answer that you're looking for from council at depending on which meeting it would go to, because the council meets twice a month. Mm-hmm. If it went to the first meeting in December, you'd probably have your answer by your December meeting. So it can be fairly quick. It always depends what else is on the agenda, on the council agenda as well, how packed those agendas get.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other general questions before we move into the specific items? Before we move to the specific items.
Maybe, Isabel, could you give us kind of an anticipated timeline for what you might like to see in terms of the committee's process on this?
It's really up to the committee. If you, if you feel like you can finalize it tonight based on your discussion, you can. Then it would go to council probably in July. They don't have a first meeting in July, so it would be at the second meeting in July. If you wanted to finish it at your next meeting in July, which is what I was anticipating, having two meetings to finalize this PAPP is very reasonable. Then it would go to council in September.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the second option might be a better timeline just because we're missing two committee members here. So it might be helpful to have one discussion now and then kind of revisit it with the other committee members. What do folks think about the timeline?
Sounds fine.
Okay, then maybe the next thing we should do is to walk through each of the specific items and have some discussion on the amount that's allocated for them.
Now that we've done the question portion, we should open it up to public comment.
Okay.
And before we go into the discussion.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so I guess we'll take public comments first. So are there any public comments either in person in the audience? Yes, if.
Hi, Phil. Kathy Deal. How are you? She was our staff liaison for the Social and Economic Justice Commission that I used to be on, and I also used to be on the Waterfront Committee. But well, I remember going over our plans like that, and it can be very time consuming, and there can be a lot of questions and a lot of concerns about the direction that you want to take the committee. So I just recommend that you provide yourself adequate time. And also, how will the public be able to comment on it?
During the course of the regular meetings?
Okay.
Yeah.
But can they submit comments otherwise?
They'd be welcome to send emails to the committee
Okay, but how will they get noticed about it?
through all of the public meeting notifications that go out through the city, either in e-news, e-notification. So if they're signed up for the Arts Committee e-notification, there's every time that there's a public meeting for any public meeting in Albany, people who are signed up to receive those notifications will receive those. Also on our website and through our social media.
Yeah.
I should also mention posted at the physical posting locations across the city where we also have those, the agendas noticed.
Okay, I do read the e-news and try to keep up. But yeah, any way that you can get the word out to people. A lot of times people think you're keeping things from them, not giving them an opportunity. So the more you can spread the word, the better off you are.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the advice. Okay, are there any public comments online?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think that at the next meeting we'll have this as an agenda item and have public comments then too, before we finalize the public arts project plan. So now moving into the individual items for each of the projects. The first one on the spreadsheet is the public art projects in support of Black lives and social justice. And I think that is pretty fixed because that's rolled over from the previous and is in place. So are there any other comments on that specific item?
I just had a question, which is that in the event the artist does not spend it within a given amount of time, does that roll back into the committee's ability to spend that, or is it just held over a 2-year period for whenever the artist would like to tap that set of funds?
But we're working with the artists on a timeline for the completion of the outreach for the project. And once the outreach has been completed, we will bring that the feedback we've received for the project to the Arts Committee. And along with this will be an opportunity for the Arts Committee to meet the artist and interview the artist. And at that point, if the Arts Committee wants to move forward with the project, then you'll make a recommendation to the City Council to move the project forward. So the other piece to this is that the council also approves not only the PAPP, but they approve any new public art in Albany. So then this, once you make your recommendation for this $30,000 for a specific project, then that would go to council. And once council approves it, then we'll work with the artist on a implementation of the project, which I expect will probably be in 2024, start in early 2024, if all goes as planned. But to answer your question, I guess is, so let's say the project falls through, like for instance, there was an example of the debunking mural that fell through as part of the process. So debunking stereotypes, exactly. So at this point, my recommendation would be to, suggest something else, right? Because that is no longer a viable project. But yes, that new recommendation would have to go to council.
Any other thoughts on this item? Okay. Moving on to the next one in the draft, murals in commercial district.
Yeah, so for this line item, Deirdre and I have been working on a proposed budget for it. It's based on guidance that we've heard on sort of the market rates for murals per square foot on the 4 sites that we've identified. We also have a presentation that we're going to give tonight as an update, and the proposed budget will be part of that as well. But basically, we want to set aside funds for the 4 sites that we've identified. That includes, the design and implementation of the murals, all of the work for column prep, the final coatings, equipment rentals, and then potentially also setting some aside for maintenance of murals as well. And so happy to talk about some of the numbers now, or we can wait until we present a little bit later this evening.
So just a point of order, the item for a subcommittee presentation, which is your 6.2, is really just for a report. It's not for a discussion by the committee. So if you do have a presentation and you'd like the committee to talk about, making some decisions or at least discussing the amount, then it would have to be under this item. So just a point of order that the 6.2 is always just a quick update or report on any work done by the subcommittee. But when you have an item that, if the subcommittee's done some work and they want to discuss it with the committee because there's an action to be taken or steps that needs to be discussed, then that's when you would request an item on the agenda specific to what the subcommittee is working on, and outside of the subcommittee update item.
Understood. So maybe then kind of the most pertinent item right now is the budget amount for this line item. Should we just provide the number now then?
Yeah, I think it. And also whatever presentation that you were intending to talk about at the other in the subcommittee report, this would be the time to do that.
So we can just do it then?
I think so, Isabel. That would be, yeah.
I think so. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is there a way for me to share my screen?
Yeah, what you need to do here. Let's just do it like this. You can either use Zoom to actually. Let me stop the share right now. So you can use the Zoom app if you log into Zoom. You can join the meeting and I can promote you to a panelist, or you can use your browser. So maybe while you're getting that set up, Deirdre, maybe if you want to start off or.
Sure, let me just find it online.
And in the future, if you have presentation materials and we put an agenda item, you can always just forward that to me, and then I could do the screen share and share that content.
So just a little background on the Albany,
And please speak into the microphone too. Thank you.
a little background on the Albany Murals Project. The goal is to install murals in public places in the Albany Commercial District, which is roughly Solano from Santa Fe down to Jackson and San Pablo from Dartmouth to Brighton. And the mission is to enhance the visual landscape of Albany and to promote community engagement through the creation of vibrant, inclusive, and thought-provoking public murals. So we've identified 4 sites and received tentative commitments from those 4 sites. Now I'm going to let Harsh talk because he's the presenter between the two of us.
Okay, great. So the Albany Murals Project, thank you, Deirdre, for kind of talking through the overview of the project as well as the mission that we have created for the project itself. So as Deirdre was starting to talk about, we have these 4 sites that we've identified as part of it. And these are the 4 sites. So the wall at Raven and Rose at Sandage and Solano, the wall at Renee's Place at Santa Fe and Solano, the wall that's owned by Albany USD at Cornell and Solano, and then some of the BART pillars on the Greenway itself. And Deirdre and I have been in touch with the site owners of all of these walls and are happy to provide some updates about that. So one thing that was included as the set of documents that was distributed for the agenda tonight was the the Public Arts Master Plan, and just wanted to talk a little bit about how these 4 sites actually line up to the master plan itself. So if you take a look through that document, there are a number of kind of priority areas that are ranked in the master plan, and mural sites 1 and 3 line up to number 4 here. Mural site number 2 is number 5. And mural site number 4, which is the BART pillars on the Greenway, is not part of the master plan, but it is a highly trafficked area because we're looking at the ones, just along Solano. And so, and BART is open to working with us. So pretty excited about that. And just give you some updates on the 4 sites. So BART in the Albany Greenway is BART is open to a mural. The theme that they have chosen is gateways, which kind of speaks to how they view BART, I think, as a vehicle, as a gateway to new destinations, journeys, adventures. Renee's Place wall. So Renee is open to a mural. The theme that Deirdre and I have kind of discussed amongst ourselves is flora and fauna. That takes after the theme a little bit of the restaurant that Renee owns as well. We wanted to get some, arts committee input on that. So if folks have thoughts, you can email it to Jeremy, who can distribute it amongst all of the committee members. And next up is the Albany USD wall. And some of the themes that we discuss with them are either, mind explorations, who we are is what we know, and future visions. And, really the goal with choosing a theme is picking something that's sort of open enough that it inspires artists to come up with their own vision for how they might want to execute on it, while also, setting the right amount of boundaries. And then finally, Raven and Rose. And the theme that we've talked about, the site owner there, is interconnectedness. I know it says AUC, but that actually should be Eric Eichner, who owns that building and that wall. So what does the overall process look like? So the Arts Committee kicks off those conversations with business owners. In the order of steps, we are here talking about securing budget. from after we get approval on budget, eventually we want to kick off the RFP process for artists, and then working on a selection process, which we have an open conversation with Isabel and Jeremy on, what that mural selection process is going to look like and how the site owners can have some sort of voice potentially in that process. And then we go to conditional approval, community outreach, and we review all of the community feedback, of course, and then making a formal recommendation to city council, then to executing the legal docs and implementation. Talking about budget, which is relevant because we're talking about the line item for this project. So, based on the 4 sites and the dimensions and the total square footage and the price per square foot, this is roughly what we are forecasting, what it would cost to do the 4 walls. We started with a baseline amount and increased it for what we believe, some of these other items would cost for column prep and coatings and equipment rentals. Now, there was already the $20,000 that was in the PAPP from set aside in the 2021 to 2023. Now, as we look through the draft for the next PAPP, I guess we wouldn't necessarily be asking for the delta of $61,000. Instead, we'd be asking for that full amount because the set aside funds, I think, further on in the budget are set aside for other projects not related to murals. Next steps, working on the PAPP plan so that we can submit a budget to City Council. If anyone has thoughts on the Renee's Place theme, you can reach out to Jeremy, who can distribute it back to us as a committee. And then, looking forward to hearing from the city attorney and Isabel and team on, how we can include site owners in the selection process and just continuing to provide us the great guidance and support that they've given us so far. That is it. Any questions?
Great. Thank you for that presentation. I guess a question that I have is, when we propose a certain amount, is it either accepted or rejected by the city council, or is it given back to us if with a new suggested amount possibly?
Isabel, would you like to take that one?
It just depends. It's
Yeah.
usually accepted. We haven't done many of those yet, PAPP. It's a fairly new process. I would say this is probably the 3rd one. So far, it's been accepted. But as you can see, it's accepted, but sometimes not implemented. They may take that into account as well, that, sometimes the PAPPs may be a little bit, maybe the projects are a little bit more than what the committee and staff can handle. So that could be something that the council brings up. If they see that there's, a lot of projects included, and they've seen that, not in the past, not many of the projects have been implemented. So that's also something to consider, I would say.
Yeah, and I noticed that in the other projects for the past 2 murals, like debunking stereotypes through muralism, that one was budgeted to be 10. They were both budgeted to be 10,000, which is less than the other ones you have. But maybe your budget is more realistic about the cost. And
We tried to be realistic. I mean, we used established metrics that other cities have, we referenced other cities' budgets. And then, like Harsh said, we're just trying to think of everything. I mean, in the best case, we're not going to spend $81,000. But if that's what it costs, then, you know.
And the debunking stereotype project came out of a community, came out of this set aside funding. You know, it was more of a community grassroots project. There were artists interested in doing a mural at a site, and they worked with the city to, to almost get it done. But as you can see, the process can be very lengthy, and sometimes projects do end without being finished because it takes a while to do art, because there's a lot of to the process. So something that starts, as you can see from the Creative Justice Art Project, we're almost in year 2 now, I think, of the call for artists was done in November 8, 2021. So, and we're in June of 2023, and we're just going to start the outreach in July. So a year and a half later.
Isabel, how much of that was pandemic-related delays, or is that just kind of the typical process for a project like this?
I mean, they all vary. It just depends. I think some of the delay in this one may have been getting a panel to review, getting the panel to review the submissions. I think that took a few months to find a date where everybody could commit. And then at this point, the artist is very busy with her own schedule. So we're working with the artist's schedule as well. So there's just different things that happen along the way. And of course, there's staff time, right? We don't have anybody dedicated to public art in Albany, so it's the recreation department, me, Jeremy. We support as we can and move forward the projects as they move forward with in the process. But we count on the arts committee to do quite a bit of legwork to get these things done as well.
And we have done a lot of, we both.
Evident, yes, for sure.
Yeah, we both, for whatever it's worth, Harsh and I think it's actually feasible for us to get this done in the 2-year period, or whatever's left of that 2-year period.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't have expected that, given how long these other projects seem to have taken. So do you think that you would kind of try to tackle them concurrently?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're pretty focused on lining up all the pieces. It's something I shared just based on my experience being on the arts committee last year. A lot of it is driven by us, right? And the energy and the work that we put into it. And Deirdre and I are very committed to seeing this.
Okay, I guess one other question I have is that it's 40% of like the total amount of the arts committee like long-term fund. So I am just wondering how long it would take to kind of regenerate that amount in the future. But
It's hard to know. It all depends on development.
do you have any thoughts on that since hearing about the total art fund?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, if you look at the previous PAPP, what ends up happening is that a lot of the projects end up getting stalled out because of the amount of time they can take to actually execute on a project. And I think that, if there is realistic traction that we see in a given project, then we should be investing in it. So even if it, sort of represents a significant part of the budget. It's something that I think that we can actually get done, that represents public art, that would beautify the city. So, yeah, I think it is a big part, but I think that we have something big to gain as well.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any other questions for you guys other than, yeah, great job. I really like that you have put so much movement on this in the past. I don't know if it's just been in the past month, but it seems like a tremendous.
It's been like, I don't know,
It's been
been
coming upon a year.
yeah,
Okay.
almost a year.
Okay. And then, I guess one last question is, do you feel an equal priority for all four of the murals or any sense of like, okay.
I think, curious for your perspective on this. I mean, to me, I think it's, we're going to try and push through with all four of them concurrently, and it's possible that issues come up where we run a request for proposals, and for one of the sites, we just don't get any that we think are up to the mark as an arts committee, or some other issue comes up because the site owner changes their mind. And so I think it's less a little bit about the sites to me than it is about, potentially unforeseen issues that come up along the way that could put a pause on, one of the sites.
Yeah, I agree, but also for right now, we have 4 solid sites. I mean, that in itself isn't, that's huge, which is what makes us feel like, oh my gosh, we actually have a chance at this. If we just had one, but that BART wants to do it, AUSD wants to do it, and then 2 business owners of pretty prominent sites are up for it too. And so it just, and it helps the momentum when we can say to them, oh, this person said yes. And that's how we got all 4 on board. This site said yes, not this person. But so, yeah, 2 years, who knows how many will actually be up, even though we'll be spending all of our time trying. But we both feel like it's worth the shot. Gosh, it could be huge if we got it done. And even 1 or 2 would make a big difference in this small city, so.
Yeah, and I definitely want to take advantage of your momentum and energy because I don't have a knowing of the history of the committee, but I would want to take it if there's the effort in it to to fund it.
I have Isabel, a quick clarifying question. If a total amount was allocated, that would necessitate an equal dispersion between 4 separate murals. Potentially, one could be $3,000, one could be $25,000, and that would be dependent on the agreements. And then 2, could this be one RFP for multiple submissions, or would it have to be one RFP per site, or site theme, something like that?
All of the above, I would
Okay.
say. It's really up to the Arts Committee to decide if they want to do a call for all 4 sites or individual calls. And as far as the amount per mural, it could be determined as part of the call, or it could be determined once the agreements, and that's what goes to council, right, is also the agreement with the artists. But you could ask for a total, but you don't have to specify, how much for each mural at this point. And as you were talking, I was thinking, since we're going to continue this item into July, I can try for July to get a little bit of history on the funding. So you get an idea of how much funding has been received since the beginning of the ordinance and what's been spent. And so just so you get some sort of idea of, how much funding, has gone through this fund over the last years. And then I'll also get a better idea of how much potential funding may be coming our way. So maybe for tonight, if you don't feel like you can make a decision on a dollar amount for the murals, you can wait until July until you have a little bit more information. But I would suggest, though, that, based on my experience with the PAPPs, I really like the energy for this murals in commercial district. I think there's a lot of work that's been done. And if there's something that I think could really move forward, I think it's this project along with the Creative Justice Art Project, because it's already underway. And I would suggest to focus, on these projects that have already momentum and maybe focus on a few rather than, a handful that may not get done.
Okay, yeah, that would be super helpful to have just sort of a sense of like the gravity of this amount relative to how much has been spent in the past. But this is what I'm here for. So, any other comments on murals? Okay, great. Well, I guess we'll try to review over some of the information before our next meeting. It would also, maybe I just need to also pay a visit to Renee's, but just to see some of these sites and like see the inside of that restaurant and what's there before, and then we can discuss more about the specific themes of these places.
One other thing that we may do for the July meeting is put this item as a presentation for a full discussion with the same slide deck, again, for our members who are not here. And then we can do a little bit of outreach to the community, potentially as well, to invite them to attend and hear about it and get perhaps a little bit more community feedback on the mural program specifically.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great. The next item is the sculpture loan program. And my comment on this, I have one comment at the moment about, so previously the amount was 10,000, and I'm assuming that 7,500 was spent for the construction and then the first artist stipend and plaques, so the remaining amount is rolled over from the previous master plan, that remaining amount. Is that correct?
This is the current stipend for the artist plus the plaque, yes. And I think as part of the previous BAPP, there were 3 sites, and there was the construction of the cement pads as well.
Okay.
We don't need to do those anymore.
One thing that might have come up last year as we discussed this project was that potentially the $2,500 stipend was not high enough. And so if this is a project that folks are excited about pursuing, it might be worth a conversation on potentially increasing that stipend amount to get more submissions.
Were there not enough submissions last year?
I think that's what I recall. And Isabel might have more information there.
I think we had 3 artists. No, there were more. It was a while ago. So, but 3 artists were selected because there were 3 sites at some point. But one site was dropped. And then we had 2 artists. And then, as I mentioned, one of the artists dropped as well because she moved out of the area. And so then we had the one, but I don't remember. I remember getting quite a few, not like maybe, I would say 7 or 8 submissions that were reviewed by a panel. But I can get some, I can get some history on that too, if that would be helpful to the committee. just to, the 2,500 is basically the artist receives $1,000 after the sculpture is installed, and then at the end of the contract receives the other, the final payment of $1,000. And then there's a $500 that we use to order a plaque to put on the cement pad where the sculpture is.
So what I remember last year with Bard Spiral was just, I think even the cost of getting the sculpture onto this site, like what it costs for the artist to be able to do that, to rent a truck, et cetera, there's not much left for them from the perspective of a stipend.
Yeah, I'm not familiar how much this is relative to what's a reasonable amount. So I guess maybe between now and next we can do some research on that. I do think that like if my math checks out, that 2,500 has already been put in place, like that, maybe that's how much it costs to put in the cement pad. And so it seemed like a lot of work has already been laid down, and it would be good to try to, see that through.
Yeah, that's how I'm understanding it too.
Okay, well, I guess we're not gonna establish a committee for that, but that's something that I would be interested in helping to put that together. So maybe between now and the next meeting, we can try to think of whether we want to change the recommended budget amount for that. Any other comments on the sculpture loan? Okay. The next item is the heron sculpture and the rehabilitation and relocation or removal of the sculpture. And any initial comments or thoughts on that one?
When was that installed originally?
The installation, that was in the mid-2000s for the heron sculpture, Isabel.
Yes, I think it's been there for 20 years, about
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah, early 2000s. It's gone through 2 rehabilitations so far of cleanup and recoding. Is that
One
Okay.
with some maintenance in between.
Yeah.
Tends to get tagged quite a bit.
Oh,
Have we done any work, the structural stability? Is there any concern? Has Public Works looked at that? Are there any safety concerns for the sculptural structure at all that we're aware of?
Not aware.
And so if we were to include this would be considered a rollover from the last plan too, right?
Well, it's not underway, so it wouldn't be a rollover. It would just be a decision to, to take this project on as part of the PAPP and assign a potential dollar amount. Right now I have no idea how much it would cost to either restore or relocate or even remove.
and the action
Something
item
that the
is,
committee would need probably to research
yeah.
a little bit.
I mean, the action is to investigate the options, so maybe we would just leave the budget as it is, since we have no idea. And then a subcommittee look into it. I don't know. Is that how things work?
That would be, I would say, Isabel, would we want to have a subcommittee to do that work, or to get the costs? And we could do that at the next meeting when the other members are here.
No, I wouldn't suggest that much work gets done on this until the PAPP is approved. This would be just an estimate I don't think there's any I wouldn't suggest that anybody investigates the, the options at this point. It would just be a potential, an approximate amount that could be that would be, for instance, if after doing your research and finding out that it would cost 15,000, then that would be an amendment, right, to the PAPP, to the city council, for whatever option is picked for the heron. It's almost like a placeholder at this point. The other pieces you could certainly, I think it's good to keep in the PAPP if you want to do it, and just put an estimate so that the council knows that you're planning to work on it. But that there is a potential that the funding may not. You may need to go back to the council for revisions on the funding.
And then at some point in the future, the committee could create a subcommittee to do that investigative work, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I mean, that's what it seems like happened in the previous master plan, that it was included in case that was of interest to a committee member. So maybe we all need to take a stroll at Albany Bulb and check it out. Okay, I guess we'll think about that and discuss that in July. Any other comments on that one? Okay, and then this sculpture. Oh wait, I switched over to the other one. Then the set aside fund, which has a maximum amount based on how much is in the total budget. Any comments on that item?
I had one. It's a question for Jeremy and Isabel, which is that, is this correct where if a project costs less than 10,000, it can move through Arts Committee without needing review by City Council? Is that, no, that's not correct.
No, but it can move forward without review by a panel of experts. So the 10,000 threshold, that's what that is. If you look at the Public Art Master Plan and the reviewing process, any projects over 10,000 require that a panel of experts review the applications. And projects under $10,000, the projects could be reviewed by the Arts Committee, and a recommendation to council could be made by the Arts Committee without bringing in anybody else from the outside to review.
Got it. Thank you. And how is the not to exceed 36,000 rec guidance provided, or what's driving that?
It's 20% of the art in public places funding. That's also set in the Public Art Master Plan.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
So in the previous plan, there was 10,000 for murals identified by city staff, and then 10,000 for the debunking stereotypes, which is no longer happening. And so my thoughts are, if there's already another mural effort that, and this would also have to be, led and powered by us, that it's probably better to push our efforts towards for what you guys are working on already.
Yeah, is the idea with this line item, it just gives us some flexibility to, as new projects come up over the 2-year period, to fund them.
Right. Yeah. I agree with still having something there in case, and if we want some sort of small project to happen. Okay.
Just doing some cursory math here, looking at what you have here, say 80,000 for the murals in the commercial district, the $2,500 for the sculpture loan, 8,250 for Heron sculpture, and 36,000 brings us to $126,750, which is, leaves about $25,000, and not all of this will be spent likely within the 2-year so that's kind of what we're looking at. It doesn't spend it all, but it takes up, that's what it's looking like right now.
Okay.
And I put not to exceed 36,000, just so you all knew that it was not to exceed 36,000, but you don't have to include the full 36, because if you think of 36,000, that's like 3 projects, right? 3 to 4 projects, or even more if they're less than $10,000. So that's a lot of projects.
Yeah, I see ourselves having a similar amount as the previous budget, or possibly even less, since we know we're putting more effort into there's another item for murals. Okay, any other comments? All right, lots to think about and before our next meeting.
Isabel, do you have anything more that you would like to add before you sign off for tonight?
No, I think that's it. I think I'll just, I have my notes here to bring you a little bit more of history on the Art in Public Places Fund at the July meeting. And yeah, that's it. So I'll do that.
All right. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, moving to our next agenda item, which is about subcommittee updates. So the first subcommittee is the art gallery in the foyer subcommittee, which is led by Brad and includes myself. Brad sent me some notes on his thoughts on the visits that we did, but I was also part of the visits, so I can kind of share a general summary. So we visited 2 of the artists, Ken Gold and Jonathan Taylor, I think, which was the primates one and the flowers one. And it turns out that the flower one has like shifted a little bit in a way that I'm pretty excited about. So it's kind of a fusion of both people and flowers. So some of the pieces are either flowers or they're people, and they're interesting because the pose of the flower is the same as the pose of the human, so they're kind of like paired together, and there's like there's parallels between the flower print and then the people print, and so that's pretty exciting. And then we also visited Ken, and which is the person that does encaustic paintings with the primates. And so we're excited about both of them. They're both still enthusiastic about having their art in the foyer. The main issue is that we need to have an artist for this summer, and it's kind of a short timeline for both of the artists since the current showing is coming down on June 26th, I believe. And so in about 2 weeks from now. And I think that there's usually a few days for people to come in and redo the walls before the new artist comes and hangs up their walls or hangs up their painting. But there's still not a whole lot of time, especially since we haven't even confirmed which artists we want to have their showing. So I think one thing we're kind of wrestling with is whether to have the current artist have their art for a little bit longer until we can get the next one queued up. But yeah, both are able to do the summertime, but with a little bit more time than like 2 or 3 weeks, especially since they have to get their art pieces like fixed to be able to be attached to the walls and decide what they put everything together. Let me pull up Brad's thoughts and see if there's anything I might have missed. The third artist, Lee Ching Accurso, they're not available until December, so it was a pretty natural decision to have them be the artist from January to March. The other things we can think about for which artist to have is like maybe which artist fits better into the summertime, which I think Brad and I were thinking that the primates one is maybe more fun for the summertime, and the other one, the florals and the humans have more of like a fall flavor to it. Anything else? Okay, I think that's also summarizes Brad's thoughts. Yeah, so I guess if I can am I just giving an update, or if they have any questions or anything?
Yeah, it's just an update. We'll take public comment on that, and if anybody has any questions or thoughts, you're welcome to add that in.
Okay. Yeah, I guess before I have questions or public comment, yeah, things seem to be moving pretty smoothly. Just timeline with the upcoming artist is the only thing that we're trying to work out right now.
Do you see any issues with that? Everybody seems like that will work for the artist as well. If there's any change with the typical timeline, since we're a little bit behind.
I guess I don't really have a reference point as to how late it would be compared to the previous years, and how much shorter of a showing they would have.
One of the other things that we can do for the next agenda is put another call for artists. When I was adjusting the online application, I changed the date to September 1st, 2023, which would give us time to discuss that, and we can talk about this under future agenda items. Do another call for artists so that we can have 2024 submissions in time for the September meeting of the Arts Committee to review.
Okay. And yeah, we do have a potential artist from January to March, which would give us even more time to lay out the other artists. Yeah, in terms of timeline for the summer, it seems like both of them could possibly be ready in early July. So it would probably be just a delay of like maybe 2 weeks or so for them to be prepared. I guess now we can take public comments if there are any in person or if there are any online.
Comment on your plan that you were discussing with Isabel?
This would be for the Foyer Art Gallery Subcommittee. Yeah. Yeah, and early July will be fine.
Okay. Okay, then I
And I don't see any other hands raised on this item in the virtual world.
Okay, sounds good. Well, hopefully by the next meeting in July, we will have an update on which artist is currently putting up or just recently put up their pieces, and have a showing sometime in July.
Great.
The next item is the murals subcommittee. Is there anything else from the murals subcommittee that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, we had a pretty good presentation already. Thank you.
Should we have any comments on public comments or?
Yeah, we could take public comments on the mural subcommittee.
Okay. Are there any public comments either in person or online from the mural subcommittee?
I don't see any hands raised here either in our public audience. No, that agenda item is over. Yeah. So in July, we'll have the PAPP on the agenda again for public comment after we've had this discussion and for further. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then next agenda item, future agenda items. I guess we can talk about a little bit more if there are any things we want to add, that we know we want to add to the agenda now. But if there's more, I think over the course of the month, we can also add them to the agenda.
Yeah, what I have so far is PAPP, again, for the whole committee. I'd also suggest having a discussion on the murals suggestions that we talked about with a presentation solely on that, so we can, so the committee can look at a little bit more in depth with everybody.
Okay, so the murals would go under presentations.
Correct.
The next meeting, and then we'll have another art gallery update under updates. Any other additional agenda items we can think of now?
This would also be a time where you could take public comment for future agenda items from the public if you were so inclined.
Okay, are there any public comments on potential items to discuss at the next meeting?
I don't see anybody raising their hand in the virtual audience. In
person?
And in person, I don't either.
All right, so our next meeting is going to be Monday, July 10th. And if there's no other comments, I will adjourn the meeting.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.